Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Kinkade, Garden Girl with Two Peas in a Bucket with another installment of Scrap Your Stash. Today we're going to talk about using arrows. I've used lots of items from the shop and from the digital shop at Two Peas in a Bucket to create this layout. First, I'd like to show you how I make my colored doilies. I'm going to start with some dollar spot doilies that I get from Target or Michael's and show you how I use acrylic paint to color them so I can use the edges, parts of them, just to add some texture and color to my layouts. First, I'm going to start with some Martha Stewart acrylic paint and raspberry ice. I'm going to put a little bit here on my surface, and I'm going to grab my doily and wet my paintbrush, and I'm going to thin the acrylic paint out just a little bit. You need to be careful not to make it too watery because of the tissue paper consistency of the doily. It will get too wet and have the potential to tear, so just be aware of that whenever you're thinning your acrylic paint out and using water. You could also use watercolors with it, but again, you would have to be pretty careful not to overload it with too much liquid. So there you go, pretty simple. And next I'm going to show you with some mist. And I mostly have Studio Calico Mr. Huey mists on hand, so use what you have on hand. I believe I'm going to use the yellow taxi, and I did end up switching brushes just because it was a different type of medium. And I was planning on just dipping my brush right in the mist itself since it's already a pretty watery consistence. And so this goes by really fast. This has it has a different quality to it, almost a transparency. It's just the difference in the makeup of this particular mist versus an acrylic paint. So I always pat it off a little bit to dry up the excess, and then I'll lay it out to dry, and then normally after it dries I press it down underneath something heavy. So now let's move on to the layout. I've got lots of die cuts from the digital store at Two Peas in a Bucket, all the little different arrows with sayings and the different designs I just thought would really incorporate well with the layout. And then these are some Studio Calico cork stickers, Mama Elephant stamps. And now I'm going to show you how I actually store some of my loose stamps, like from Embellishment or Mama Elephant. I have this 4x6 album that came with transparency inserts, and basically use that just to put my stamps on there with coordinating labels that come with the Embellishment packages and slip them right into that sleeve. And also, I didn't have enough of those transparencies, so I cut transparencies myself. As you can see, I have some Hambly there for those El Studio ones, but it's just a convenient way to keep all of them in one spot. So now I have some of the freckled fawn arrow phrases and arrows, and then all of these really cute freckled fawn colored arrow clips. I think I got a little bit carried away and ordered almost every color with my last Two Peas in a Bucket order, but I just wanted to have a variety of colors to be able to use on all of my projects. And so now I'm going to move on to some of the crepe paper stickers. I like to use the tabs and little odds and ends just to embellish my projects. And there's just lots of fun different shapes, and these are also some from Basic Gray that I might end up using. And now I have already pre-cut my 8.5 by 11 papers. I decided to do a 2-page layout, kind of going out of my comfort zone, using some Studio Calico pattern paper and then cutting down some white cardstock to put on top of it. And I have these photos that I'd taken of me running with just myself and some with my family. The one with the arrow in it I thought was appropriate for this layout as well, so I just had already cut it to see where it would go on my page. Also, these are some pattern papers that I'm using, Amy Tan Yes Please, and some others from the Studio Calico Serendipity collection. So now I'm just going to measure my photo to make sure that this pattern paper that I'm going to cut will be to size how I want it, because I want it to just be a strip along the middle there. So I'm going to trim it first, lay it there, and then figure out where it needs to be cut for the page separation. So again, I'm going to put my photos down on there to make sure I have enough pattern paper to begin with. And you have to excuse me because it's been a long time since I've done a 2-page layout, so it's almost like doing it all over again. So I measured it and I'm going to cut it here. And now that I have it sized, I'm going to lay my photos back down, and probably this will be my last finicky measuring that I do before I start adhering things down. But I just wanted to make sure that everything fit properly before I started getting down to the nitty-gritty and laying down all of my embellishments on the layout. And right now, I just always consider my adhesive to kind of be the temporary way of adhering everything down, because I ultimately end each page with sewing a lot of loose things down. So this is just kind of to tack everything into place. And now I'm going to decide the patterns to put on there. And you're really seeing me go through this, the trial and error of how I want it to go down. I had a loose idea in my head of how I wanted the pattern paper to work and look behind there, but I wasn't 100% sure yet how I was going to do it. So there I have the teal colored Studio Calico paper that I decided to put behind the gray dotted paper. I'm going to start adhering my photographs down now. And I decided to start with the larger arrow photo because I kind of felt like that was the one that anchored the layout the best and coordinated it since it had an arrow on it. So now as I'm looking at it, I decide, and I'm going to start getting some of my die cut arrows that I cut in 2 different colors of cardstock, and ultimately chose some of these arrows because they add direction, they can point to certain things, and also just the feel of running, almost like being on a track or on the road. So I decided at this point that I wanted to add some of the yellow pattern paper that I had, and I'm going to put that on the right side, and I measured it against the teal colored pattern paper that I had already cut for the left. So I'm going to put that back into place, and then I will put the yellow on the right side. And these pattern papers will essentially, as you'll see, serve as the base for housing all of my embellishments and the journaling that I decide to put down. So now everything is going to go a little bit faster at this point that I've established my base, putting down my title, Let's Go, that I cut with my Silhouette Cameo. And I really liked this page once I got finished with it, because you'll see it's a nice mix between the digital die cuts and actual paper, other paper embellishments from other manufacturers. So I was pretty pleased with how it turned out in the end. So I'm gonna tack my title down, Let's Go. And I welded these letters together in the Silhouette Cameo program. And now I'm putting the arrows into place. I almost thought these rounded arrows served as photo corners as well. Now that I'm getting everything tacked into place, I'm decided that I need to figure out where I'm going to add my journaling. And if you've seen me do a page before, you know that most of the time I keep my journaling hidden, and I like using these glassine bags and tucking them behind my layers on my pages. So, and these are really not even glassine bags I've necessarily bought. Some I've bought, but a lot of them I'm recycling from things like die cuts being put in there or shapes or something like that. So I just measured it and cut it to put behind there. And then I'm going to back the good stuff die cut there with some of the dotted Amy Tangerine Yes Please paper, roughing up the edges just a little bit. And tacking it down. I was just careful how I put the paper behind it because of the dots. I was able to center it pretty good there. And now thinking about other arrows. Not sure whether I'm going to use the arrow clips or what I want to do, so I'm going to set those off to the side for now. And I'm going to get some of my stickers out and start to decide where I want to place each of those. Just putting them here and there. Little phrases, smile, things that make me happy. Sometimes whenever you're working out, it's a lot more fun when you have someone to do it with. And my husband and older daughter have been very good about going with me on runs lately. So that's helped keep me a little bit more accountable with my running and my fitness. And now I'm using some of the stickers. As you can see, this has a 3 on it. I'm going to use a 1 and 2 and 3 on each of the photographs there. The first one's just me going solo. And you can see at first I don't really know exactly where I'm going to put it. A lot of times I end up altering some of my embellishments to make them fit. And I was cutting up that sticker and I decided not to use it. And so I ended up using just a small number 1 sticker from that crepe paper sticker sheet. So now I'm going to adhere the love phrase from Freckled Fawn with some tacky glue. That's what I often do with the wood veneer phrases. And I decided I'm just going to use a part of that arrow cut there in the lower left corner. I counted how many triangles or arrows I had to determine how much I was going to put in the upper right corner. And what I did is I had a scrap piece of paper underneath it and ran my adhesive on the underside so it didn't get on my workspace, but got enough adhesive to put down. I'm just roughing up the edges of that die cut right there. And I'm going to go to the Studio Calico cork stickers. Again, just playing around with placement, deciding where I'm going to like it best. And now I'm going to get my stamps out. I'm going to start with the Embellishment stamps. I have to be mindful because the me and you stamp that I want to use have arrows on them, so I need to make sure that they are going in the right direction. And there I just decided to use my StazOn ink and stamp directly on the photo. And you can see I moved that little label. I wasn't real happy with it because it said me and I wanted to use the me stamp, so I removed that and I'll put something else there later. Now I'm trying to figure out where I want the other stamp to go. And a lot of times what I do, especially when I'm using the StazOn ink, is I have a scrap piece of paper there to make sure that the stamp's covered adequately before I stamp directly onto my page, because I don't want to ruin it, so to speak. So I always do a test stamp on a scrap piece of paper. And there's another one currently. This is Life Right Now, stamped by Embellishment. And here's an Insta Love stamp, because these are all Instagram pictures that I took with my phone when we were done running. And then that is the Mama Elephant stamp. It says a good day, that I did in a repetitive way. And I'm putting on more stickers. Just adding embellishments here and there until I get what I'm happy with. I don't want to overdo it, and right now I am measuring for my journaling card. I just took a piece of white cardstock and that little arrow bracket got in the way, so I'm taking that off for now so I can make sure that my card fits in my glassine bag. And so it does, and I'm going to still use that cork sticker, but I moved it so I could get my journaling in there, using the date stamp on there. And I want to use this arrow clip from Freckled Fawn to frame some of the words that I typed on there with my typewriter, the good stuff. And I'm going to do that with more of the arrow clips, using them to point to the pictures or point to different areas in my project, as well as framing certain aspects of it. In this case, I'm framing all of the numbers just because I want them to pop out a little bit. Which makes it nice in this case that I did a 2-page layout, because I could just slip that arrow clip right in there. And I'm using part of that doily that I colored in the beginning. Decided to use the one that I had colored with the Mr. Huey's. Tucking it behind my pattern paper there. I know it looks a little askew from the picture, but it's tucked right there on the side, as well as on the bottom for some extra pop of color. And really that's mostly what I use the doilies for, is some extra color to coordinate with my layouts, not necessarily for the doily in and of itself. So now I'm just adding extra touches here and there, and I'm pretty much finished with my overall layout. So grab your arrows, your stash, your die cuts, whatever, make a fun page, link it up in the 2 Peas gallery. Thanks for watching. This is Jennifer Kinkade with 2 Peas in a Bucket.